Peterson, one of the SLPs in the district and also an assistive tech person. And I am at Maplewood. And we are going to be talking about AAC, which is a way that AAC is when students are using usually pictures, sometimes iPads, low tech or high tech, to talk with other people. All right. And Jennifer Martin is here and is going to be graciously keeping track of the chat for me. So thank you for that. We are going to go through these slides together. I'm still hearing some not mutedness. All right, there we go. Whoever you were, thank you. You found it. We will go through the slides together. If you have any questions or any responses, feel free to pop them into the chat. You're also welcome to unmute and ask your question, but there is kind of a lot of us here, so people may feel more comfortable using the chat in that way. And there is somebody watching that who will let me know if there is a burning question. All right, let's get going. First thing I'm going to draw your attention to is if you want to look at these slides later, this tiny URL right here is to the slides. It is tinyurl.com/AAC Modeling 101. The link is also in the calendar invite. So that is where you can find that. And what we are going to be talking about today is, what is AAC modeling? Why do we do it? Who needs it? How do we do it? And what district resources are available to help us? And this is an hour-long training that I often do with a whole classroom team, like with the teacher and the paras and anybody else who works in that classroom, when there's students who are learning to use pictures to talk. If that is something that you think would be helpful for your classroom, feel free to get in touch with me after this and we can set that up. That is a training that I can do in any classroom over Zoom. Pretty much anytime you can find me an hour to do it. And I love to talk with classrooms about AAC, so please don't be a stranger. The handouts were also in the Google Calendar invitation, so you can find links to them there. The first one is a link to our district staff lanyard. This is mine. It has our district core board on it. And the second link is to just a one-page handout that kind of summarizes what AAC modeling is, which you can feel free to use that as reference afterwards or share it with families or parents or with your other staff in your classrooms or however you need to refresh. Ooh, I hear someone not muted. There we go. All right, this what we're looking at right here is our district core board. And oh, I hear feedback again. If you are unmuted, please mute yourself because I think that's why that's happening. All right. This is our district core board. There's a lot of different versions of this. And this is what I will be putting up on the screen for us to be practicing this skill together, practicing AAC modeling. So I just kind of wanted you to get a chance to have eyeballs on it. You may have printed out the handout, so you might have one of those sitting in front of you. And if you don't, that's okay, because I will put it up on the screen when we need to look at it together. So we are going to start with a short video. This is an introduction to what is AAC modeling. There are no words, there's just some music, and it's about 2 minutes long. So we're going to watch that together, and then we will jump right in.
I think I went to high school with
There
this
we
girl.
go. All right, so that was our video. Thanks for watching that with me. Let's get into the content. What is AAC? Because I've used that term. I want to make sure that I define that because that's the main thing we're talking about. AAC stands for Augmentative and Alternative Communication. And that just means anything that people use to communicate besides using their mouth to say words out loud. So that could be picture symbols like on a core board. It could be using an iPad to communicate. It could be typing. It could be using switches. It could be using manual signs. Any of those ways of communicating would qualify as AAC. And we have lots of students in Edmonds who are learning how to use other ways to communicate besides using their mouth to talk. It can be high tech, which means using some kind of an electronic device, or it can be low tech, which just means that it's paper-based. Those are two terms that you hear a lot. So AAC modeling, that's what we're talking about in this class, is when a communication partner, like a teacher, a parent, a para, an SLP, a peer, uses AAT to talk with a student. It's also called aided language input or aided language stimulation. Those terms mean the same thing. And the most important thing about it is that it's something that the adults are doing without asking the students to say anything back to us. It's something that we are doing to talk to a student. I do enjoy a good meme, so there will be several throughout these slides. Here's my first one. It's starting to be a little dated, but I hope you still get it. Hey girl, I like how you're modeling language by using the student's device. So why would we do this? Here is the rationale. This is a quote. The source of it is linked right below it from a journal article several years ago. From the moment a baby is born, they hear and respond to the spoken word. We bombard that infant with language for the first 12 to 18 months of their lives. During that time, we do not expect that they will utter a single understandable word. So that's pointing out that like when we have a typically developing little kid, we talk to them all the time. We talk to them and we talk to them and we talk to them and we talk to them. I right now have two 18-year-old nieces who are absolutely adorable and the love of my life. And I am seeing this firsthand right now with my sisters and our families, how we talk to those kids. We just talk to them, talk to them, talk to them. And they aren't really saying anything back to us yet, but we are still giving them all of that language exposure. And that's the same kind of thing that we want to do for our students who don't use mouth words to talk, is we want to figure out a way to give them exposure to language in a way that they can understand. So here's another kind of take on that. This is a quote from Jane Corsten. I think that is her photo. Google Images said that it was. It might be wrong. If you know differently, please let me know. But she has a very famous quote. That is, the average 18-month-old child has been exposed to 4,380 hours of oral language at a rate of 8 hours a day from birth. A child who has a communication system and receives speech or language therapy 2 times per week for 20 to 30-minute sessions will reach the same amount of language exposure in 84 years. And as an SLP who's providing that language therapy, that quote just is terrifying to me. I can't possibly see students enough to give them all of that great language exposure that they need in order to learn how to use language using a device. It really does take everybody at school, teachers and paras and SLPs and parents and everybody giving students that exposure to help them to understand how it works and to help them learn to use it. Which is why I developed this training and why I am so happy that you are here with me today, because let's talk about how we can all do that. So here are some AAC options things that you could use to model AAC to students in your classrooms. You could use a core board, like one of the flip books that we see around the district. It could be an iPad. Many of our students use the Proloquo app on an iPad to talk. Or it could be picture symbols that students are pulling off and handing to people. Or it could be switches, or it could be lanyard tags. Really anything that the student is using is what we can use to model AAC, to show them how it works. And who benefits from AAC modeling? Meaning like who needs this kind of input? Well, students who are learning to use these kind of systems to talk, they need this in order to help them learn how to do it. But also, if students have limited verbal understanding, having words that go with pictures is super helpful for them, so they benefit. Or students who have a hard time using words, maybe they do use oral words most of the time, but they don't have very many of them. Having pictures can help those students. Students who are learning English, having pictures can help them. Students who need visual supports, like you're getting the idea. It's basically just students. All of our students can benefit from having some extra visual support for language. And this is a super easy way to provide that. So I am talking about our students with those really significant disabilities, but I'm also talking about something that can help a lot more students than just those kids. And this might be my favorite slide. It is symbolizing, it's to remind me to talk about this metaphor that I heard a really wonderful occupational therapist talk about one time. And it was the imagery of filling your cup. Like when you're filling a cup with water, you pour it in and you pour it in, and the water builds up and builds up. And then when you pour in enough, it starts to overflow over the top and gets everywhere. And that's a really great way to think of language for our students who aren't using language to tell us things yet. We need to give them lots of language and fill up their cup and fill their cup and fill their cup. And using AAC modeling is one way to give them all of that language, and we just keep pouring it in and pouring it in. And when they have so much, eventually it will overflow and come back to us. I really like this metaphor because it helps us to remember that even if students aren't talking back to us immediately, that it can really be that we are doing something that's super helpful for them. All right, I'm hearing some feedback again. There we go. All right. So that is what this slide reminds me of. So here are the steps. This maybe is my favorite slide. They're very complicated. Step one, get the AAC, meaning if you're going to use an iPad, get it next to you. If you're using a core board, like whatever it is that you're using, it has to be in your hand for it to be able to use it. Can't be across the room or in a kid's backpack or wherever else it is. Get the attention of the student. That might mean that they're looking at you, or it might mean they're just paying attention to you, depending on whether they are a student who makes a lot of eye contact. Then you just say something using the core board or the iPad. You offer the AAC to the student so that they might say something back if they want, and then you wait. This is maybe the most important part. You wait, give them time to think. And if they say something, that's great. And if they don't, that's totally fine. The most important thing is that we are saying stuff to them and then just seeing if they'll say anything back. And then you just repeat that. You say something again using AAC. You give them a chance to respond if they want. You wait and rinse and repeat. So here's my second meme. 3 ways to encourage the use of AAC. Number 1, use it yourself. Use it some more. Keep at it. This really, really, really is something that we are doing, that the adults in the classroom are doing, not something that we are demanding of our kids to be doing. I'm going to give you a little more information about how to talk using AAC, because it's a little different whether you're using like a high-tech AAC or low-tech. If you're using high-tech AAC, meaning like an iPad or something, you just touch the words you want to say and the device will talk for you.
I like that like that.
You can say the words out loud with your own mouth if you want to, but because the device is saying it, you don't have to. That's just kind of a personal preference. And because the device is talking, the student doesn't even need to be looking at you for this modeling to be useful. It is helpful if they can see the screen so they can see where the buttons are that you're touching, but that's like an extra bonus. It's not necessary. If you are talking using a core board or like a paper-based AAC thing, you do the same thing, you point, and you want to use a steady point. I will point that out because I know it's kind of a tendency to tap, 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 tap. But if you think about it, if you're doing that, like I'm looking at go right now, I'm saying go, 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 go. Every tap is like saying it again. And we're modeling for our students. So if we do it, they'll do it. And you'll get students who are just banging on a board. So it's helpful to just use a static point and point to the word that you want to say. And then you just say it because the board doesn't talk for you. It is more important for the student to be able to see the board, although they don't need to be looking directly at you to be paying attention. Okay, maybe this is my favorite slide. This slide is to remind me to point out again that this is something that the adults are doing. It is not something that we are forcing our students to be doing. So we are doing the talking, which means that we are not using any hand over hand, touching their hands, having them point at anything. I've had multiple students get really upset when adults tried to make them touch a device, either a core board or an iPad. And it can actually make the students reject the iPad, and then you've lost a tool that you might be able to use to help them in the future, because it turns it into this aversive power struggle experience instead of us using it to show them without touching them and without trying to coerce them to use it with us. You offer the opportunity to touch it if they want, but we do not use hand over hand. There's actually research that shows that hand over hand is less effective than students just watching us for them to learn a new skill. So that's part of why. But that is something that's very, very central to when you're using AAC modeling. Do not use hand over hand. It is something that we are doing. So I'm going to pause right here just for a sec and give an opportunity for questions. If you want to pop them into the chat, you can do that. Or if you want to raise your hand. I know I kind of shared a lot of information very quickly. I'm not seeing any questions, so I'm going to keep going. If you think of questions, go ahead and pop them into the chat because we will come back to that. All right, we are going to do some practice. So we are going to talk about requesting and rejecting. I'm going to show some modeling with like a book reading activity and some movement. We're going to talk about core words. We're going to talk about a bunch of stuff. When we're doing the practicing, I will show a video that is kind of demonstrating it, and then we will have a practice together. And I will ask you to like pop things into the chat for the audience participation part. So let's talk about requesting. Oh, and I should say these videos are from a great group of SLPs in Minnesota. I believe they put them on YouTube. So that's where these come from. Let me make sure I'm sharing my sound. Yes, okay, here we go.
Sarah, do you want a Cheeto?
Want.
You want a Cheeto.
Want
to eat.
Eat.
Looks like you want more.
More. Not. More.
You want more.
Want. More. Good.
They are good.
Good.
Do you want more?
Want. More. More. More.
You want more.
More. More. More.
More
More.
Cheetos. You want more.
More. Go.
You want to
Go.
go. Ooh,
More.
you want more.
More. More. More. More.
More. There's only one more.
More.
Then we'll be all done.
All done. More. More. More.
We do not
Not.
have any more.
More.
We are all done.
All done. More. More. More.
We are
All
all
done.
done.
So in this video, there are three big important things to look out for. First, we're looking at how the staff models the use of the device based on the nonverbal cues that the student is already giving. So when Sarah is reaching for that bag of Cheetos, Maggie models, you want the Cheetos, and uses her device to show the communication and the language that matches Sarah's nonverbal communication with her reaching. Next, she attributes meaning to everything that the student communicates. So whether it's on the device or with nonverbals or approximated signs. So when Sarah approximates a sign for eat, Maggie uses the device to confirm that she understands, oh, you want to eat. And lastly, the way that Maggie prompts Sarah to interact with the device. She provides a gesture prompt or a point prompt, and then gives Sarah a bunch of wait time to give her the opportunity to demonstrate that skill and move through that prompting hierarchy in order to shape the skill of using that target word.
All righty. So just to summarize that last slide that was in the video, I put it here. Strategies to work on requesting is model using the student system, whatever system they're using. And the words you say, like match them to what the student is showing you, like if they're reaching or pointing, then you might show them language that matches that. Attribute meaning to what they communicate in any mode, whether reaching or sign or AAC. And you can model, gesture, point, and wait. I did see the question in the chat, so we're going to do this exercise and then I will answer that question. So let's do some practice. I'm going to put up a core board on the screen, and I want you, well, there are many more than 3 ways, but we're going to find at least 3 ways to request something using the core board. And you can just pop those right into the chat, or if you feel brave, you can call them out as well. So let's think about it. What are 3 ways, at least, that you could request something using this board that is up on the screen now?
I want to turn more. Point to it. Play.
Yeah,
Help.
I love that one.
I want
Also,
help.
I
All
want help.
done.
Oh yeah, we can ask to be finished too.
Want help and more.
Want, yep. Those are
Toilet.
great words. Toilet, we definitely need to be able to ask
Want
for
more.
that. Want more?
Go home.
Are we ready to go home?
Eat more.
I want to go home too.
Hungry.
I
Want
love
more?
it. Yes.
Tired. Tired. Lots of people are tired today.
You know, I
Waiting.
feel ya. I feel ya.
Stop. No. Off.
All right. We are getting the idea. Thank you for those responses. I'm sure you can think of even more. There was a question in the chat before this about whether using a core board delays verbal language. And the answer, there's actually been quite a bit of research on that. And the answer is using AAC supports verbal language. It either doesn't have an impact at all, or it makes it faster for students to acquire verbal skills. It never slows it down, ever, ever, ever. And if you think about it, that makes sense because we're giving students more support for language. We're giving them pictures as well as just the auditory, which if students are having trouble learning with just the auditory input from language, giving them a visual support that goes with that can help them to figure it out. And so their language is always supported. And sometimes that makes it easier for them to speak with their mouths as well, although not always. But it never slows it down. So that is a great question. It is a very common wondering, and that is the answer. Let's talk a little bit about rejecting.
So Melissa, in the chat, someone's asking what age do you start using the devices?
Great question. It can actually be any age. There is not a too early. You can start in preschool. You can start when students are older. It is preferred if you know that students are having trouble using verbal speech, like starting earlier is awesome, but it's never too late. That is what I will say.
And Melissa, just to piggyback on that, I know from the deaf culture that they will start signing to their babies right out of the womb.
Yes.
So that's the same kind of assistive communication.
Yes, yes, yes. That is a very good point. All right, let's talk about my other favorite thing, rejecting. Here's our video. Our video's being tired too.
Sarah, do you want?
Want.
More.
More.
You do not
Not.
want more.
More.
All right, in this video, when Sarah was rejecting the Cheetos by throwing them away, Maggie modeled the appropriate language that she could use to express that rejection.
So summarizing that, you can model an appropriate rejection on a core board or an iPad, like not once, stop, all done, different. When a student is using a nonverbal or socially inappropriate way to reject. Many of our students who aren't using verbal words have a lot of creative ways to show us their rejection. And it can be really helpful to give them language because then they can show us rejection in a much more appropriate pro-social way. So let's practice. I'm going to be sad when Grumpy Cat is no longer relevant. Maybe that's already happened, but I love him. Let's find 3 ways to reject an item or activity using. So this image is from Proloquo to Go. This is what my home screen looks like when I'm using that app. So since many of our students are using that app, I thought I would put that one up here. How many ways can we find to reject? Go ahead and pop those into the chat.
No, stop, all done. No more, all done. Stop, but bad, different,
Different. I love that somebody
Not.
called that one out. That's one I use a lot.
mad.
I want something different.
Please, no.
Please no. Yeah, bad is a great one as well.
Not more.
Not more. Yeah.
No, more different, out.
Out. Yes, I want to go out. That's a
Nearly
good
all
one
of
too.
them with no in front.
Yes, I
Break.
mean, we have not on this home screen, which is a great one to
Mhm.
have. All right, I think we get the idea. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the concept of core words. You might have heard that term or you might not, but let's watch a video about it first.
I see
See.
you looking outside, Mara.
What?
What do you see? You see the snow. There's some
Some.
snow out there. It looks cold. You see the
See.
car. I wonder if you want to play outside.
Play outside.
Wonder if you
Want.
want to
Play outside.
The glass is cold. think the cold is bad.
Bad.
I do not like
Not.
the cold. You're all done.
Done.
All right, so in this video, there are two takeaways. The first takeaway is that you don't need to model specific or fringe vocabulary. You can still model a whole bunch just using core. So for example, the teacher or the staff in this example was saying things like, I see snow, and just modeling I see on the device. The second takeaway is that the student doesn't have to look like they're attending in order to be attending. We know that this is common for kids with autism. They don't have great eye contact and visual attention. So the student might be looking away, they might be doing something different, they may not be imitating or using the device. That doesn't mean that they're not getting information or input from you modeling still using the device.
All right. So the term core words is kind of an SLP term. So I'm going to explain what that is.
So Melissa, in the chat,
Yes.
someone's asking about the boards, if they're the same or similar, and trying to understand what the color groupings are.
Oh, okay. So in terms of core boards, actually, I will answer that question in 2 slides. Okay.
Okay.
That is a very good question. So core vocabulary is the name for the most commonly used words. And this is a concept that it holds true in every language. About 80% of everything that people say uses the same 200 to 400 words. And it's a range because it depends on different languages, exactly which 200 to 400 they are and exactly how many there are. And it also depends on whether we're looking at like written language or spoken language. But about 80% of what we say is the same 200 to 400 words in every language. So that is what core words are. And then within that big category of like 200 to 400 words, there's about 40 that have the most power for like emerging communicators. And so those words are what's on core vocabulary boards. And those are like the first words that we focus on when we're teaching students to use AAC. So on our district board, those words are there. And that concept of core words is really useful because if you remember that 80% of what we say is the same small chunk of words, if you focus on using those words when you're modeling, it's so much easier. Like if you're talking about, I don't know, an example, it would be if like you have a lesson that's about a volcano. It can be very challenging, if not impossible, to find the word volcano in an iPad that has like 10,000 words. But you could find the words up, hot, ouch, scary. You could find lots of other words to talk about a volcano, or I see it, look at it. Oh my goodness, like those words are much more useful for our students to know and understand than the word volcano. They're also much easier for you to find and use if you're modeling for a student. And so that's why we recommend focus on those core words when you're talking with students using an AAC, like a core board or a device. If your student isn't using words yet, it's totally fine to just model 1 to 2 words. You don't have to model the whole sentence. You might just pick a keyword in that phrase, in what you're saying, and just model that part of it. 1 word at a time is totally fine. So here's where I'll talk about the different core boards. There are a variety of core boards. The words that they have on them are pretty similar. Like this is our district core board that you're looking at right now. In the L, those are the core words that are in the same place on every single board. And pretty much all of the other core boards that I've seen have just about those same words. There might be 1 or 2 words that are different, but those ones were picked because they're the most common and carry the most meaning for functional communication. The colors are on this board, like the yellow is pronouns, the pink are the verbs, the black ones are kind of the other words. There has been research on whether that is helpful. And basically the research found that it's helpful for the adults. For the AAC user who's using that to speak, it doesn't make a difference. It just makes it pretty. But for the adults, it can be helpful for us to be able to kind of figure out what's going on and give us some visual cues. So on some boards, the color scheme is different, like the verbs might be orange instead of pink. That's just a difference, and it's totally fine. And it doesn't need to match. But if you are a person who really likes things to be matchy, you can make it match for yourself, and that's fine too. This particular board that we're looking at is one that I made for the health room. So that is why it has words like Band-Aid and shot and inhaler up in that top right corner. And on our district boards, you will notice that the top right corner is where the words can change, where we put those fringe words, those like specific words that we might need. And then the L is always the same. So if you need to say go, it is always in the same place on this board, which helps staff and it helps students, because once you learn where go is, you don't need to relearn it again. So that's kind of the geography of our core board. And just so you see another version, this is the Proloquo to go app. This is another, like a version that has fewer buttons than I prefer, but you can see that the core words are on the main page. And then the spots that are the folders, kind of that bottom row and coming up a little bit on the sides, those ones have more of those fringe words, like the specific words. Whereas the core words are on the front. And this setup is really useful to know, because if you remember that the core words are on the most common words are on the main page, you can spend most of your time talking on the home page and not have to get into the weeds into a million different folders. I find when I try to go to tons of different folders, I get lost, and then it's hard. So if you just stick on the main page and just say things using those words, it makes it much easier. So that is what core words are, and that's why they're important. So let's talk a little bit more about something we do a ton in our classrooms, reading. Reading together with students is a great place to do some AAC modeling.
All right, this book is called Where's Spot? Yeah, where is he? He's right there, you found him. He's looking in a box. Let's open the book. I wonder what happens. Oh, there's Spot. Look, you found Spot. That Spot. He has not eaten his supper. Where can he be? Where, I wonder. Let's turn the page. You open the door. Is he behind the door? He's not there. It says no. Okay, let's turn the page and find out what happens next. Is he inside the clock? Where is he? Let's open the clock and see. Look, yeah, he's not in there. You found a snake. Okay, we're finished on this page. You turn the page. Nice turning. Is he in the piano? Nice opening the piano. What do we see? That's a hippo. That's not Spot. Spot is not in the piano. Is he under the stairs? Here? You think he might be here? Let's find out. Look! Look at what's under the stairs. It's not Spot.
In this video, I want you to notice three things. First, the staff is attributing meaning to everything the student is pointing to in the story or pointing to on her communication board. Secondly, the staff is modeling what's happening in the pictures while she's reading the book. Last, the staff is modeling only 1 to 2 picture symbols per sentence she's speaking. So she's modeling the key words in the sentence, like where or in, as she's reading the story.
All right. So just to summarize that, if you're reading a book with a student, you want to attribute meaning to what the student's doing. So if they're pointing at something, you could talk about what they're pointing at. Model what's happening in the pictures as well as the text. It can be, it's easier to think about modeling the text because you can see the words there, but also model what's happening in the pictures and talking about the pictures, because that's the same thing that we would do with kids who are typically developing if we're reading a book with them, is we just talk about the pictures. Model 1 to 2 words per sentence and focus on those keywords like where or in. So this next, I have another video. This one's actually me. You'll get to see more of me. This is a clip from a video that I made during remote learning when I was doing some shared reading over Zoom with some of my students. So you'll see on the screen, there's going to be cues for what words I'm saying. And those are cues for the adults who are sitting with the student at home to like say those same words on the kid's device or on the kid's core board when they're at home. So let's just watch a little bit of that. It's a pretty fun book. Do not open this book if you have ever read that book.
Do not open. Do not open.
Do not open this book. Go read something else. Oh, you opened the book. I assume that was an accident? No problem. Accidents happen. I'm not even angry. Just please
Do not turn. Do not turn.
don't turn the page. What the heck? You turned the page. Did you hear me okay? I'll put it down to a simple misunderstanding, but I'll see it once more, very clearly. Please
Do not turn.
don't turn the page. What are you doing? I just told you
Not turn.
not to turn it. You definitely heard me. Look, I was very reasonable when you opened this book, but this is too much. Whatever you do,
Do not turn it. Do not turn it.
please don't turn the page.
There we go. I do love shared reading. If you want to see more of those videos, there is a playlist in the slide deck that will take you to a playlist of me just reading books to children and AAC modeling. Or if you want to use the slides to work with some students yourself, there is a link to the slide decks as well. In that book, I was focusing obviously on do not turn, were the kind of the 3 core words that I was focusing on for that book. So you can also model when kids are just playing. Here is another example of using core modeling while you're doing a movement activity.
Maggie, it looks like you want to go for a wagon ride. Go! Let's go! We are going in the wagon. Go! Nice touching! Stop! Stop! We are stopped in the wagon. Let's go! Wow! Wow! And stop! Stop! I like how you're using your words. Different. Should we do something different? Not something different. Let's go. Let's do more. More wagon. So in this video, our staff used a movement activity to create a number of communication opportunities. First, she made sure that she had the core board with her so that She had a way to model, and her student had a way to communicate. Next, she created opportunities for the student to use those target words of stop and go by modeling and then pausing, doing what we call an expectant pause, where she stopped and waited until the student used their communication system.
All right. So to summarize that, you can use any activity, especially something with movement that students love to do, to create those opportunities to be using AAC. Bring the system with you, because otherwise you can't use it, and model first and then pause. I love modeling out on the playground. I have my, this is the one that I wear. It's just like clipped onto my waist. And I love going out to recess with students and modeling stop and go and up and down. And you do it, I do it, all sorts of fun things that you can model when kids are really having fun. This is another example of a way that I kind of used that during remote learning. This is a choice board that I had for students to pick which movement song we would do as like a break. And you'll notice the core words are next to it. So students could like point, or they could use like the words stop and go or up and down to pick which song that they wanted. And during those songs, like this is the freeze dance, you may recognize it. I call it the stop and go song because we can stop and go and stop and go. And then I would model those words while we're listening to the song. So that's just another way to stick in more core and stick in more modeling for students to see us using it. So I have just a few more slides and then we will have some time for questions. I've got a couple topics to talk about: stimming, babbling, sharing. These are definitely things that will come up when students are using AAC. So the first thing is babbling.
Melissa, we had a comment or a question in the chat. If a child has a tablet they mostly use for their core board, would using a smaller paper one occasionally confuse them with where the words are on their device? And the person was thinking that the pictures might be different too, and that might also get confusing.
There has been research on that, and the answer is it does not confuse students. They pretty much figure out the different systems, like an iPad is a different way of talking than a core board. We have several students at Maplewood who use multiple ways. They might have an iPad when they need a big vocabulary and a core board when they're just saying things really quick on the go. Kids are good at figuring it out. The other thing that actually surprised me is that the icons don't need to be the same. What students are paying attention to when they're using it to talk is mostly the location. So like on our district core board, the word go is always in that same spot. And it does have a green arrow, which helps me to visually find it. But the main thing that students are learning when they're watching you is the location. The icon doesn't actually make much of a difference at all, which surprised me, but that's what smart people have figured out. So that's what we go with. And when I think about it, it actually does make sense to me. If you think about like when you use your phone, that's my best example. The icons for like your different apps do help you, but the main thing that you're using when you're using your phone is your muscle memory of my Instagram is up in the top right. Now you know which app I use most. Because when you get a new phone and all the apps are in different places, it's so disorienting and it takes you a little while to learn where those are. But once you're used to the phone, you don't need to be like scanning your phone every time to find all of those. It's because you're doing that same thing that our students are learning how to do, is you learn where the thing is mostly by the location of it. And that's the main strategy that you use to find it again. Great question. So let's talk about babbling. Babbling is something that all of our typically developing kids do when they're babies. They just make lots of noise and it's cute and adorable. And we go, oh, you said dada, even if it maybe was doggy or maybe it was just playing with sounds. It is a very normal stage of development. And we see the same progression in kids who are using AAC a lot of the time, especially if they're using an iPad that has voice output where it talks for them, kids will just play. They'll find words, they'll explore words. They might say the same word over and over and over again. And that is a normal stage of language development. It's not something we want to stop. It's actually something we want to encourage them to do. So when students do that, because I assure you they will, the same way that if we were talking with like a little kid who was doing that, like attribute meaning to what they say, give them lots of time, and let them carry on with it. Students will also make off-topic comments, I promise. And we want to respond the same way that we would if a kid who talked was making off-topic comments. Just redirect them back to whatever we're supposed to be talking about. Don't take away the iPad or the core board or whatever because they're saying something off topic. We want to teach them how to stay on topic rather than taking away their ability to say anything at all. And this one also comes up a ton, especially for our autistic students. Students will stim on AAC devices, I promise. Since stimming is a sensory need, it's not something that we can or should stop. And they'll do it on low tech or high tech. Like I've had students who flapped with a paperboard, and that's okay. Stimming is okay. If it's preventing communication, we want to give them another way to stim so that the AAC iPad or low tech tablet or core board or whatever can be used for communication. So like, for example, for the kid who is flapping his communication board, I gave him a laminated piece of cardboard instead. So he could flap with that. And he learned, this is my flapper, this is my talker. There are other things you can do with the settings on an iPad to make it so that stimming on the iPad isn't happening as much, but it's also okay if it is. Just work with your students to help them understand when is their stim time and when is their talking time. And if it's becoming a huge problem, like I would say, talk with your SLP to figure out some strategies to address that. But definitely don't remove AAC because a student is stimming, because that is something that their sensory system needs. And sharing, this is a big topic. Some students are totally fine sharing their AAC with staff. Other students are pretty possessive and protective of it, and they don't want you to touch their words. Either response is fine and rational. Like if students are willing to share, that's great. If they're not, we need to respect that, and we'll get you your own. Because I am doing assistive tech stuff with the district, I'm actually the person who would get you your own. If your student has a core board, I'll get you an extra core board. If your student's using an iPad and you need another to model, we'll get you an extra iPad. Like we will make sure that you have what you need. And it is okay if students don't want to share. Always ask them. And if they indicate that it's fine, or if they don't object, it's totally fine to share with them. If they show you that they don't want to share, let us know, and we'll get you either like a duplicate device or another core board, or we'll figure out a way so that students don't have to share. We have 4 minutes, so I'm just going to, actually, I'm going to show you one more slide. We're not going to watch this video. This is a group instruction thing. The thing that I wanted to point out is that the teacher up at the front has one system. It's like a poster. And then the two students have 2 different iPad apps. None of them match. And that's totally okay. The paras who are sitting next to the students are just modeling for the students to show them where those words are on their devices, and the teacher's modeling up front on a different board, and that is totally fine. So, in conclusion, I'm just an SLP standing in front of the team, asking them to model AAC. If you don't get that meme, please don't tell me, because it will make me feel old. We have 3 minutes. So I'm going to stop sharing and open the floor. What are your questions?